Hey, what's going on, guys? Back here setting your DraftKings.com Week 3 lineup. Hope everyone had a great week 2. And with that, let's dive in. We're going to start out at our quarterback spot. We're going to target a guy that I hope everyone's been targeting, or at least has had a decent amount of exposure to through the first 2 weeks, and that is Carson Palmer. Price tag is still pretty low, and that the Cardinals offense certainly looks to be elite thus far. And as long as Carson Palmer's under center and Bruce Arians doesn't misuse David Johnson this year, that's David Johnson, not Chris Johnson, I think that they're going to continue the trend of being involved in high-scoring affairs, and Vegas will continue projecting them at healthy team totals. They have a team total of 25 points, and they have a projected team total of 25 points this week. And they get a Niners defense that gave up 4 passing plays over 40 yards or more to the Steelers in week 2. Pro Football Focus has the Niners graded out as a 23rd worst pass coverage team through 2 weeks, and they certainly don't seem to be making any adjustments to right that ship either. Palmer currently averaging the 7th most yards per attempt in the league at 8.8, but he's tied for first with TDs at 7 and is first in the league with 0.816 fantasy points per attempt. And at $6,600, I'm not quite sure how we can pass that up. While it's not a week that I think you need to pay for running back, which gives you the opportunity to pay up at quarterback, I genuinely, like, Carson Palmer should be a $7,600 quarterback with some of those other quarterbacks up there, according to his production and what we believe he will do with the Vegas total. So I'm going to take him at $6,600. We're also going to pair him up with the guy who went off last week, because he continues to have an excellent price point as well, and that is Larry Fitzgerald coming in at $5,800. I just said it. They have a great, the Cardinals have a great projected team total. Their implied team total is 25 points, and they get that Niners defense that I literally just said gave up 4 passing plays of over 40 yards. All of that applies to Larry Fitzgerald here. Fitzgerald has 5 TDs on 46 catches over the last 8 games with Palmer at the helm. Thanks to the RotoViz Game Splits app for that, by the way. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And his price is fantastic here. There's not a whole lot that I need to say other than Larry Fitzgerald seems to be the younger version of himself through the 2 games. It's just a great price point here on DraftKings and FanDuel. So I think that you need to take advantage of that as well. Let's move on. Let's knock out our defense here. We're going to pay up a little bit for our defense here, and we're going to grab the Seattle Seahawks, $3,400. They have an insane projected team total. Vegas has them scoring 4 times, the Seahawks, that is. Now, while I believe most of that obviously comes from the offensive side of the ball, I think that is a good indicator of what they can do on defense. They are not going to be, I guess it's probably would be a good thing if they were going against Jay Cutler, because he's pretty turnover prone as well. So it's just the Seahawks are a team to target. I like Russell Wilson at quarterback, Lynch at running back, and there are Graham is a great tournament play. I like Doug Baldwin as I actually don't mind him as a cash game play as well. But anyways, off the Seahawks here, I guess what I'm trying to say is just target them. They're a great team to target players from, whether you're constructing tournament or cash game lineups. So make sure to have your exposure to the Seahawks this week. Let's grab one of our other wide receivers to go with Larry Fitzgerald, and that's another guy who I believe is fairly underpriced this week as well, and that's Brandon Marshall at $6,200. And while Julio Jones and Antonio and ODB technically all rank ahead of him, and even though ODB already went, I think from a dollar per point perspective, Marshall might be one of the best plays out there. And since we're not being price agnostic here, like we have to take price into consideration, I think that's where Marshall comes in as my number one wide receiver on the week. I think Randall Cobb ranks very similar for me, where him and Marshall are priced the same or at least close to it. So I won't argue Cobb as a great cash game play either. I just with Eric Decker looking to miss Sunday's contest, and the Jets having a healthy team total of 24 points, which and they're only 2-point favorites, suggesting that this game script is going to stay nice and close. Should lead to a few more attempts here from Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is just something that we want to target. Is game script. Like I said, the biggest thing here though is that Decker looks like he may not be. Is that Decker looks like he may not be able to go, leaving Marshall to hog all the targets and consume most of Decker's looks in the red zone as well. We had Marshall projected for just over 7.5 targets, but when we adjusted for Decker's absence, the number shoots up to almost 11. So Marshall will certainly see a fair amount of the not-so-feared Byron Maxwell lining up on the opposite side of him as well. Byron has allowed half a fantasy point per target. So every time a quarterback targets him, he's giving up half a fantasy point. So I think it's really hard to fade Marshall this week. He's kind of what Jordan Matthews was to me the first 2 weeks. So that is our second wide receiver. Let's go grab a running back here, our first running back. We're going to grab Latavius Murray. The Browns have graded out as the league's 27th worst run defense, according to Pro Football Focus, through 2 games, and gave up an average of 24.5 points to teams opposing running backs in 2014. So while they usually tend to avoid running backs who are playing on the road and are underdogs, Murray's overall consumption of his team's carries and targets helps kind of just ease that red flag. He currently has 75% of his team's carries and 20% of his team's red zone touches. The projected team total is a little low, but I guess another reason why I'm not choosing to ignore that, but at least not weighing it in as heavily, is his salary across a lot of the sites, especially here on DraftKings, really help mitigate that risk. And then he's got that pass catching ability, which he's got 10 receptions through 2 games. It truly does help just eliminate some of the risks that we're seeing there. I think that it's worth noting that PFF has Pro Football Focus has given him the 4th best elusive rating through 2 weeks. And if you don't know what elusive rating is, it's basically a metric that sifts out their workload beyond the help they get. So it uses using like the number of missed tackles runners force on all of their touches, rushing and receiving, and yards after contact tallies. The elusive rating formula basically spits out a score that helps rank the league's best at making things happen when it's completely up to them to make that happen. So essentially what it comes down to is making a guy miss or grinding out the extra 4 yards after they are hit by contact after the line of scrimmage, things of that nature. So it's a metric that I like to use a lot. And through the first 2 games, he's ranked as the 4th best. So let's grab Latavius Murray there, $5,800. The other running back that we're going to go pay up for one. And like I said, while I don't think that you need to, this is somebody that I want. Le'Veon Bell is somebody that I continue to find in my cash game lineups and really just being a staple in those cash game lineups. In 2014, he saw 17.5% of his team's market share in targets, and just under 35% in his team's red zone touches. So these 2 things alone make him a staple, not just today, but going forward in your cash game lineups, especially on a full PPR site like DraftKings here. The matchup isn't ideal, but I'm a little bit more concerned about the volume that he'll see. And when I say that, he's huge volume guy. So I just think that workload is going to be down a little bit, meaning I genuinely think he steps right into D. Will's role and sees close to like 80-ish, like close to 85% of his team's carries on Sunday. And D'Angelo Williams was averaging like close to 90% of his team's carries. So I think that Le'Veon Bell really just takes over that role, but I think the workload might be down just a little bit. So rather than touching the ball 22 times and getting like 6 targets, he could certainly be closer to like 18 touches, carries, and closer to like the 4 to 5 target range, which is still exceptional. What do you say? Let's get another wide receiver here, and this third wide receiver spot for me. I've got a few guys like Jarvis Landry, Keenan Allen, and Dante Moncrief. They all rank and project very similar for me, but Moncrief is the easy choice here on DraftKings as he comes in at just $4,800. The Colts have a projected team total of 24 points, and in 2014, the Titans were 26th in pass DVOA, which stands for defense adjusted value over average, according to Football Outsiders. And they finished 8th in pass coverage eighth worst in the league in pass coverage according to Pro Football Focus's ratings in 2014. So while Moncrief hasn't out-targeted Hilton yet, and it's actually really, really close, he has caught more receptions and does have more yards. It's the season's still young, but I think that's worth noting. And he's also averaging 2 points per target. So he's being extremely productive with the targets that he's getting. And at $4,800, it's a real easy lock for me here with Moncrief. So let's throw him into our wide receiver spot. And that leaves us with tight end and flex. Y'all know me. I definitely like to get my Gronkowski exposure. However, I am going to go back to the well here with Richard Rodgers. He's a great way, exactly what I said last week, an exceptional way and a tremendous value at finding a minimum guy in a high-scoring game. And the Packers are projected at 28. They have a projected team total of 28 points this week, and he's minimum price here. It's just until DraftKings adjusts that, you're gonna continue finding me recommending him. He's pretty expensive on FanDuel, so I'd definitely recommend fading him there. And while you can't expect the world from him because he does find himself in blocking situations a little bit more, he's still seeing close to 65% of his team's offensive snaps through the first 2 weeks, and he did manage to convert the 3 red zone targets that he saw into a touchdown in week 2. So I thought that was great that Rodgers was targeting him in the red zone that much, and he's just a super viable punt option here at the tight end position. So let's lock in Richard Rodgers. That leaves us with $7,400 to spend at our flex position, and that is a lot of money. We can work with a lot of different things here. Now, for recording this podcast right now, I am going to go with Marshawn Lynch at $7,400. He is struggling a little bit, and I've seen the questionable tag obviously thrown on him, but I've seen game time decision as well being thrown around. So it's definitely something that you want to monitor. With that being said, though, I saw a tweet from John Paulson of 4for4.com, and it said, since 2011, Marshawn Lynch has averaged 1.16 touchdowns at home versus 0.57 on the road. And typically when player props come out and that they're not out at the time of me recording this, I'm going to be very, very surprised if Marshawn is anything other than minus 200 to score a TD during Sunday's contest. As I stated earlier, the Seahawks, they have a projected team total of 29 points, implying that they might find the end zone 4 times. If the Seahawks offense scores 4 times and Lynch was not one to contribute at least once to that, I will probably quit playing daily fantasy sports and just withdraw and walk away and never look back. I think he's just a lock, and he's going to be highly owned, and there is some disadvantage to owning a guy like that, but also it's essentially the equivalent of a block, right? if you don't own Lynch and he goes for, let's just say 30 points, and you not having him, that's going to be pretty brutal. I'd rather have a guy 50% owned and block out 50% of the field, and obviously get the edge on 50% of the field in something like this. So the nice thing is that Lynch has also seen 6.5 targets through the first 2 games, and he's converted those into 4 catches, which is nice. I mean, it certainly helps you set his floor. It's really not super meaningful. 6.5 targets isn't a ton where you see a guy like Le'Veon Bell getting 6.5 targets a game. But it is nice to see that he's catching the ball. He's just really not that good of a runner when he catches it, though. And the nice thing here is like you can get off of Lynch really, really quickly, and you can go to my boy Gronk. What you can do with Gronk, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about him. You are having 2 tight ends here. It's a little bit more of a tournament strategy, is running 2 tight ends. But Gronkowski, I think, and I said this last week, if you consider him as an elite wide receiver, the price point's technically a value, right? So like if we go to our other wide receivers here and we look at Antonio Brown at $8,900, we look at Demaryius Thomas at $8,000, who Demaryius Thomas at $8,000 is one of my targeted receivers. If you want to fade one of these expensive running backs, then I would look to work in Demaryius as well. When his salary dips, as far as it's dipping, he has a great trend of exceeding the value on his salary. So look for Demaryius Thomas as well. But like I was saying about Gronk, at $7,400, he really is putting up elite wide receiver 1 numbers. And so I just think that's a great price point to utilize there in your flex. And the dude has averaged, like me and him are best friends or something. He's averaged close to a TD per game and sees close to 30% of his team's targets. So I don't know, man. It's hard to fade Gronk. It truly, truly is. So I think with that, I'll let you guys make a few of the harder decisions here as to what you want to do with the lineup. But I think this will help you get an idea of who I'm targeting, why I'm targeting them, and really just genuinely trying to educate you guys on how I go about setting lineups. And by no means am I some professional daily fantasy player. I'm a small ball guy, running $200-ish out there in head-to-heads, and then various amounts in tournaments. So it's not like I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line like some of these other guys do, but definitely do spend the time doing the research and take it pretty seriously. So I hope that you guys enjoyed week 3, and or hope that you guys do enjoy week 3 and end up in the money. And I will see you guys next week. Take care.